Today we take a look at events that happened in 2019 in the UK. Emma F.S., a 39-year-old care worker, went missing under strange circumstances on April 28, 2019. 2 days later, her family contacted the police, and the authorities launched a massive search to uncover the truth about what happened to Emma. The police had to search an area of 700 square miles. Emma lived in Kilmarnock in 2019. Kilmarnock is a town and former burgh in East Ayrshire, situated in southwest Scotland. Her home was filled with silence and comfort, and her faithful companion, a dog named Maverick, always followed her loyally. Emma's life was measured and quiet. She was known among her neighbors not only for her kind heart, but also for her ability to find a common language with everyone around her. Her dog Maverick, an adorable West Highland Terrier, was not just a pet, but a true friend, almost like a son to Emma. Together, they would take long walks in the woods and parks, enjoying the fresh air and the beauty of nature. On April 25, 2019, Emma paid a visit to her parents. Her mother, 70-year-old Margaret F.S., and her father, 70-year-old Ian, were delighted to see their daughter. When visiting her parents, Emma always brought with her an atmosphere of warmth and homeliness. Throughout dinner, Emma's parents shared their memories and plans. These were stories Emma had heard many times, but each time she found a new, inspiring detail in them. The conversation at the table was easy and relaxed, and every now and then, her parents reminisced about the past, when Emma was a little girl, and how they used to go on picnics to the lake as a family. Emma herself laughed with them, immersed in the memories of the carefree days of her childhood. But the conversation didn't stop there. The parents made plans for the future, telling Emma that they were going on a trip to Brighton to visit relatives who lived there. Emma noted to herself how easily and cheerfully, despite their age, her parents made plans, retaining their enthusiasm for life and new experiences. After dinner, they moved to the living room, where they continued their conversation over a cup of coffee. This evening became for Emma not only a meeting with her loved ones, but also another reminder of the importance of family, of that invisible thread that binds generation after generation, and of what is truly valuable in life. No one could have guessed that, in just a few days, there would be no trace of this family peace. Emma told her parents that she was going to meet her friend Ross Willicks on Sunday, April 28th. Emma and Ross had known each other for 18 years. They met when they both worked as wardens at Kilmarnock Prison. Emma told her parents that Ross had adopted a dog from a shelter, and she wanted to visit him. In a text message, Emma admitted to her sister that she was going to have a bit of a mad one. Ross lived in Fairfield Park, Moncton. At about 8 p.m., Emma texted a friend to tell her that she was at Ross's house, that she planned to have a glass of wine, and that she would stay the night. Emma was usually in frequent contact with her loved ones, and her phone was described as an extension of her arm. But the next day, Emma didn't call or text any of her friends or family. Her mother, Margaret, said this was totally out of character. On April 30th, Emma's parents were visiting relatives in Brighton when Margaret received a call from Emma's employers, informing her that her daughter had not turned up for work. Emma communicated with the family member or friend every day, so her parents immediately knew that something was wrong. "We were on edge and decided to report her missing because it was so unlike her," her father said. At about 4:30 p.m. that day, police officers broke into Emma's flat on Fullerton Street, Kilmarnock, and discovered that her pet dog, Maverick, who had been heard crying by a neighbor, was home alone. Everyone who knew Emma well was sure she would never leave her dog unattended. Maverick had recently undergone an operation on his cruciate ligament, and Emma kept him in a cage while he was recuperating to stop him from running around and jumping. Ross Willicks became the immediate focus of the investigation codenamed Operation Solon. He told officers that Emma had decided to drive back to her flat, which was less than 9 miles away. At about 11 p.m., he said they were at his house in Monton, and she got worried about her dog, which had undergone an operation, and wanted to take it home. They decided to go to her flat. He said he joined her for the journey and later took about a dozen lines of cocaine. Willicks said Emma was positive, upbeat, and enjoying herself. She was talking about her forthcoming 40th birthday and a cruise. He claimed to have gone home in a taxi at about 7 a.m. on April 29th. Emma's sister, Miriam F.S., who works in Abu Dhabi, returned to Scotland to join the search for Emma after she was reported missing. She flew back to Scotland on the 1st of May 2019 and began helping in the search for her sister. The next day, Emma disappeared suddenly, leaving behind a feeling of deep anxiety and uncertainty. From the moment her family was unable to reach her, a complex and intense operation to find her began. The police, joining forces with Emma's friends and family, quickly sprang into action. The streets of the city were soon filled with information leaflets featuring Emma's image. They included details about her last known whereabouts and a request to report any information to the police regarding where Emma might be. Information about Emma's disappearance spread on social media, with each post on Emma's family page attracting more and more comments of support and hope for her safe return home. Emma's family, filled with despair, pleaded with the public every day for help. Any detail could be crucial, they wrote. Please help us find Emma. The police, sensing the importance of solving the case as quickly as possible, also appealed to the townspeople for help. Detectives asked owners of private CCTV cameras to check their footage. Perhaps Emma's figure would be glimpsed among the usual street scenes, or maybe something suspicious would be recorded. Hope and fear mixed into a solid sense of unease, yet all who knew and loved Emma did not lose faith. Hundreds of complete strangers did not remain indifferent, turning the town into a single organism united by the common goal of finding Emma and bringing her home. The importance of obtaining evidence in Emma's disappearance became a top priority for the police. Every find could be a clue to the mysterious disappearance, and every piece of evidence, every word from a witness, became a piece of the puzzle the investigators were trying to assemble. In their intense work, it was necessary to consider every detail. Every conversation with neighbors and relatives became for detectives a source of new ideas and versions that could shed light on what happened to Emma. The investigative team's ability to thoroughly analyze the evidence was critical to their success. Their attention to detail and persistence in the search for the truth allowed them to build a fragile but decisive chain of events, leading to the unraveling of Emma's fate. In addition, it was important for the investigators to consider not only the physical evidence, but also the psychological factors. They tried to understand Emma's character and her relationships with others, to determine if she had any enemies or what could have driven her to take steps that most people would consider unlikely. Emma's car was critical to the timeline. Footage from a dashcam revealed that the blue BMW 1 Series was parked outside Ross Willicks's house at 5:39 p.m. on April 28th. The next morning, Emma's car was found parked outside her house, but the odd thing was that the car was parked on the opposite side of the road. Emma had obsessive-compulsive disorder and always parked her car right outside her flat. It was a stroke of luck for the police when they obtained footage from a private CCTV camera, which captured that the car was not actually being driven by Emma, but by someone else. It was a man. Let's take a look at the footage that the police released. If you look closely, you can see the driver wiping down the interior of the car, including the steering wheel and the dashboard. Investigators believed that Emma's car was driven by Ross Willicks and that he knew what had happened to Emma. Willicks did not join Emma's family and friends when they put up posters and distributed leaflets around the area after she was reported missing. Emma's sister, Sarah F.S., told investigators that after Emma disappeared, she contacted Willicks, and he gave her two different versions of what happened on April 30th, 2019. She texted Willicks, "Hi Ross, I'm just wondering if she's still with you. No one's seen her." Willicks said she was not with him, and when Sarah asked when Emma had left in a text, he told her, "Sunday, Maverick was getting rowdy with my dog Patty, and Emma was getting stressed." In a later message, Willicks informed Sarah that he had driven Emma home himself. As the search for Emma intensified, experts began to plot Willicks's movements using CCTV footage and analysis of his cell phone. CCTV footage was discovered showing Ross Willicks going into various shops in Ayr and buying bleach, rubber gloves, and tins of outdoor disinfectant. Detective Crombie said, "When we put all those pieces of evidence together, it painted a suspicious picture of Ross Willicks's movements." They also examined his background and discovered that he used to build wind farms near the Galloway Forest in Dumfries and Galloway. This became critical when cameras picked up 2 journeys to the area in the days following Emma's disappearance. The first, on April 29th, was made in his Mercedes SUV. The following day, he made the trip in a Jaguar he had bought for his wife, who was working abroad when Emma vanished. A police dog trained to detect the scent of dead bodies later gave a positive indication during the search of the Jaguar by repeatedly barking at the boot area. Police drafted in search experts from the UK National Crime Agency, as well as an officer who had worked as a wind farm liaison and had intimate knowledge of the area. The Galloway Forest Park covers around 700 square miles, and Detective Crombie said some parts look like the surface of the moon. Digital forensics experts analyzed Willicks's cell phone and overlaid it with the CCTV footage that had been recovered from the routes he took in the 48 hours after Emma vanished. As I mentioned earlier, the police dog signaled during the search of the Jaguar used by Willicks, so investigators realized that Emma was dead. But they needed more convincing evidence to convict Willicks. They needed to find Emma's body. Police once again appealed to the public for help. The vehicles are known to have been on the A714 Girvan to Newton Stewart Road, the Mercedes on Monday, April 29th, and the Jaguar on Tuesday, April 30th. Detective Martin Fergus, who is leading the inquiry, said, "What Emma's family is going through is unimaginable, and our priority is to find her. I am thankful to members of the public who have been in touch and have provided us with valuable information, which has led us to explore this area. I believe the A714 route is key to helping us find Emma, and I am appealing again to those who use this route regularly. Please take time to think back and consider if you saw a Mercedes or Jaguar on this road, parked somewhere, or even off-road. If you have dashcam footage, please take the time to go through and check it." He added, "You may not realize it, but you could have captured footage of the vehicles in these locations, which could provide us with vital information and assist us in finding Emma." Willicks was under constant police surveillance, as he was the primary and only suspect in Emma Faulds' disappearance case. Another important lead was provided to the police by Ross Willicks's best friend, Neil Moore. Moore said he spotted unusual searches on his device after Willicks had asked to use it. Moore told prosecutor Paul Kearney that when he looked at his iPad on May 8, 2019, he found searches he had not made. These included, "Can cars be traced by GPS?" as well as, "Do police put tracking devices on cars?" and "Can UK police trace your car without a warrant?" Willicks was under surveillance when he was arrested at his mother's house on May 8 on suspicion of Emma's murder. He pleaded not guilty and stated that he did not know where Emma might be. The Galloway Forest covers an area of about 700 square miles, but by using specialist techniques, police were able to focus on a search area. Police called in the help of Professor Lorna Dawson during Operation Solon and the search of the 700 square miles of Galloway Forest, where Emma's body was suspected to be. The soil expert was asked to examine a number of items, including Timberland boots worn by Willicks. Professor Dawson made her findings on June 11th, and 24 hours later, Emma's naked remains were found hidden in an area of Glen Truel Forest, somewhere people would not normally walk through. There was a 92% soil match from the boots compared to the earth that covered Emma's body. A further possible match from the forest site was found under the wheel arch of the Jaguar. Willicks knew the area through his work as a wind farm project manager, but he told police that any sightings of him in the area would have been when he was walking his dogs. Mobile phone analysis also placed him in and around the location. Detective PC said his dog, Bear, who was specially trained to find dead bodies, began barking indicating that he had found something. The officer returned to the spot to investigate further. After donning sterile gloves, PC said, "I lifted the vegetation to see if it was a body part or torso. I could see the lower portion of a naked body." Hundreds of mourners gathered at the New Lay Kirk in Kilmarnock to pay their respects before a service at Holmeston Crematorium. Emma's West Highland Terrier Maverick, wearing a blue bow tie, was at the front of the procession out of the church. On the social media page of the family's butcher business, Emma's relatives said they only now felt able to make a public statement. They said they had received a multitude of cards, hundreds of messages, and fields of flowers during this desperately sad and painful time. This proves that there is a great caring community spirit in Kilmarnock, and further afield, indeed worldwide. They added, "Thank you all so much for your support and kindness you have shown us during the past few weeks. We're not there yet, and it will be a long time until we get answers to all the questions that have been haunting us. But knowing that everyone is with us makes it easier to bear." They signed off the message from the FAL family and, of course, Emma's dog, Maverick. Ross Willicks has been charged with the murder of Emma FAL. Willicks is also charged with attempting to defeat the ends of justice by hiding Emma's body for days. Before dumping her in a forest and attempting to cover up his alleged involvement in her death, between April 28 and May 8, 2019, prosecutors allege that he disposed of Emma's mobile phone, clothing, and belongings. He also carried out an online search about blood and how to remove vehicle tracking. Prosecutors also allege Willicks repeatedly left voicemails on Emma's phone, pretending that he believed she was alive, and he quizzed officers about her whereabouts, claiming he was worried. Jurors were told Emma's body was so badly decomposed that a pathologist could not state what caused her death, although she had an apparent injury on her neck. Pathologist Dr. John Williams told the High Court in Glasgow he carried out a post-mortem examination of Emma FS, but Dr. Williams said he was limited in what he could establish from her remains due to the state of decomposition. Under questioning from prosecutor Paul Kearney, he also said he could not be definite as to when Emma died. Dr. Williams's report did confirm she had no fractures to her arms, legs, or ribs, and no significant natural disease was detected. Prosecutor Paul Kearney asked the witness, "So nothing to point to a natural cause, but with the great caveat that your examination was affected by the state of decomposition?" Dr. Williams replied, "That is right." During the trial, it was learned that toxicology samples taken from Emma FS contained traces of cocaine and alcohol. Reading from his report, Dr. Williams said, "In summary, the medical cause of death has not been established. The degree of decomposition has limited many aspects of the postmortem. As a result, the jury was told the cause of death must be ruled as unascertained." Forensic scientist Joanne Cochran told the court how she took a sample from a seat lever of the BMW during an examination of the vehicle in September 2019. The expert said it matched Ross Willicks's DNA profile. The trial also heard how the accused's home was examined for blood. Forensic scientist Joanne Cochran said 2 small droplets were found, which matched the DNA profile of Ross Willicks's father. There was also small contact blood staining elsewhere, which was said to match the accused, but no other blood was found. Willicks had denied murder during the trial. Willicks's version of events was that he had been partying with Miss FS before they then went in her car to her flat in Kilmarnock, Ayrshire, around 9 miles away, where he claimed he left her fit and well. Donald Finlay, who was acting for Willicks, said it would not be appropriate to express any contrition on behalf of his client, who denies he was responsible. Finlay added, "He is not the kind of person I would have expected to have found himself guilty of a crime of murder. The murder of somebody that he knew and cared for. They cared for each other, not in any romantic sense, but as friends. Something catastrophic went wrong in the early hours of the morning, and 1 life was lost." On the first day of the trial, Emma's mom, Margaret FS, said of where her daughter was found, "No one would walk there or drive there. You would have to see it to believe how remote it was." One person did venture there, however, determined to make sure no one could find out what he had done to his friend of almost 2 decades. On June 11th, soil expert Professor Lorna Dawson produced her findings after examining a pair of Timberland boots owned by Willix and Mercedes and Jaguar cars for the presence of soil. Professor Dawson's analysis led to search teams refocusing on wet, boggy areas and ultimately finding Emma. She told the trial that there was no natural path to the deposition site, and it was not an area you would normally walk through. You would avoid it. The soil recovered from the boots, Professor Dawson said, came from the deposition site rather than a similar common bog habitat. After a 6-week trial, a jury found Willix guilty of murder and attempted obstruction of justice. Emma's emotional parents and sisters Miriam and Sarah were present to hear the verdict. Judge Mulholland told Willix, "You know what the sentence for murder will be. It will be life imprisonment. Be under no misapprehension. This was a foul crime on a young woman loved by her family. You would have visited upon them a lifetime of wondering if she was still alive, had her body not been recovered as a result of the sterling work by the police and experts. It was in such a remote place, and you had intended her body would never be recovered." Willix showed no emotion during the announcement of the verdict. The callous killer admitted he did not take part in any search for Emma. He insisted the bottles of bleach were used to clean his decking and not wipe away any evidence of a crime. What happened between him and Emma at his home that night remains unclear, and only he truly knows what led to her death. In June 2021, Ross Willix was sentenced to life in prison. He will have to spend 20 years in prison before he can apply for parole. Only you will know what happened in your house that night that led to you killing your friend. You were not as clever as you thought you were, Judge Mulholland told Willix. In a statement released after the guilty verdict, Emma's family said, "We are absolutely devastated by Emma's death, and her not being with us has left a tremendous void in all our lives. We cannot believe she was taken from us in such a violent way, and what makes it even worse is that Ross Willix was supposed to be her friend. The last 2 years have been the worst our family has ever experienced, culminating in a 6-week murder trial in the High Court in Glasgow, which ended earlier today. The conclusion, as you are probably aware, is that the man who murdered our beloved Emma has been found guilty. I feel on behalf of my family that I should use this message to thank everyone, friends, customers, and the wider community for their fantastic support, kindness, and help when needed. We know we will never get Emma back, but we feel with all the professionals involved in the case we've got justice for her.